I'm going to tell you something strange. Some nights, the clock doesn't count time. It counts the distance between me and the truth. The night before my 61st birthday was one of those nights. Savannah was quiet, like a lake before rain. Baldwin Park lay under big oak trees with Spanish moss. My one-story wooden house felt as thin as a breath. I didn't go to sleep early. Maybe because I've learned that loneliness has many smells: dry wood, old paper, and sometimes a hint of pipe smoke, like a friend passing by the porch. My name is Alma Mae Robinson. People here call me Miss Alma. That night I sat at the kitchen table. The wall clock knocked gently at the silence. I poured myself a cup of mint tea and set a second cup across from me. It's my small habit, a seat for tomorrow. To remind myself that morning always comes, no matter how thick the dark feels. I didn't think about cake or candles or who might call. I thought about the hands that once lived in this house, the laughs that once caught in the curtains, and the warm voice that's been gone for 5 years, Reggie, my husband. When the clock passed 11, a breeze from the park slipped through the window and shook the thin white curtain. I pulled a chair close to the door and listened to far, soft footsteps of a late runner. Night in Savannah has its own way of talking. Bugs, oak leaves brushing each other, and empty brick streets still holding a bit of the day's heat. I caught a tiny old smell, Reggie's pipe smoke. I smiled and shook my head. Memory can be playful. I went to bed late. My small bedroom looks out on the backyard where I grow a few pots of rosemary. I closed my eyes, and sleep came fast, like a door already open. Reggie stood by the bed in his faded blue work shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows, the veins on his arms like old lines of ink. He didn't smile, but his eyes were gentle, telling me not to be afraid. "Before sunrise, you must get out of the house, Alma," he said. His voice wasn't loud, but it left no room to argue. I tried to speak, but my throat locked. His cool fingers touched my cheek. "Listen, before sunrise." I woke with a start. The dark felt heavy, and I sat up straight. 3:47. A streetlight drew a thin gold line across the floor. I took a breath and knew this smell wasn't rosemary, and it wasn't pipe smoke. It was sharp and dry, like a whisper. Gas. Was I imagining it? Maybe, but maybe not. I got out of bed, feet on the cold wood. I didn't turn on the lights. I wanted to hear the house answer in its own way. The pipes, the fridge, the wind. I walked the hall and slid my hand along the wall with the family photos. Reggie holding little Aaliyah. I laid a hand over my heart. "Stay calm, Alma." At the living room door, I stopped. A tall shadow stood near the frame, as high as a man. I blinked. The shadow vanished like wind turning down a dial. I gave a sad smile. Age 61 has taught me that sometimes our eyes see with missing. But missing has no smell. Gas does. And now it was slipping in like a story not yet finished. I grabbed my thin coat and stuffed my keys, phone, and wallet into a pocket. I opened the door without turning on any lights and stepped onto the porch. The early morning air in Baldwin Park was cold enough to clear my head. The wind cut through my coat and carried a faraway train horn from the river. The block was quiet, like every house was sharing the same dream. I sat in the wooden garden chair and pulled my coat over my knees. Reggie said, "Before sunrise." I checked my watch. When you're scared, time moves like honey through a comb, slow and sticky. I thought about what people call family betrayal. Cracks that don't pop. They leak. They don't snap. They grind. By the time you notice, the blade is already on the bone. A stray cat jumped onto the fence. Its green eyes glowed in the dark. It stared at me for a long time, like it was asking a small question. "Are you going back inside today?" I laughed without a sound. My phone buzzed a weather alert I didn't need. I turned it off and let the silence be. I leaned back and counted breaths the way my doctor taught me. I remembered what Reggie used to say when the coffee first began to steam. "I like this smell because it smells like home. Home. Home is what makes you stop, not what makes you explode." Something was wrong. Near 5:30, the sky changed. A thin thread of light crossed the top of the oaks and painted the brick path. I heard a dry, tiny sound inside the house. A metal click, maybe a switch, maybe two things tapping in the kitchen. I stood up without thinking. Then so fast my mind can only replay it in slow motion. A push of air rushed out of the house, then a crisp crack, then a hard blast. The windows shook. The air ripped. Fire shot out of the window like an animal full of gas trying to breathe. I froze and threw my arm over my face. Heat stung my back. I heard my own voice call, "Reggie," even though I knew he was elsewhere. A neighbor's alarm began to ring. Doors opened, feet ran, people shouted. Someone dialed 911 as fast as a reflex. I didn't move. My eyes stuck to the fire chewing down from the roof. Strange thing inside the noise, I felt calm, like holding small scissors over a loose thread. Something needed to be cut. I knew the fire wasn't only burning wood. It was burning old questions stuffed away like winter coats. Why did my gas stove checked 3 times before bed turn into a volcano? Why, this afternoon, when Terry, my son, and Keisha, my daughter-in-law, came by, did Keisha smile a little too long when she left the kitchen? And why, standing outside the flames, did 2 words ring so clear? Family betrayal? Savannah firefighters came fast, like a right-on-time rain. They ran hoses, cut the fire, and spoke in short, steady words. A big man walked to me and set his hand on my shoulder like bracing a door that might slam. "Ma'am, are you okay?" I nodded. My throat burned like a cup of tea left on the stove. "Are you alone?" I nodded again. He looked at my house falling like a kerosene lamp caught by wind. "You're lucky. If you had been inside." He didn't finish. He didn't need to. After a shock, people say your ears record very small things. I heard water hissing on hot boards. I heard the fire crawl backward, pushed away. I heard Miss Etta from next door shout, "Miss Alma, thank God you're outside." She ran over, her robe flapping like wings. She hugged my shoulders. I nodded. My lips shook, but my eyes stayed dry. Crying now felt like pouring water into a bucket with a hole. The fire roared like a bad dream that refuses to end. Inside that roar, I heard 3 old words, so old I thought I'd left them behind. Family betrayal. I didn't want to point fingers. I didn't want to accuse shadows. But some things don't happen by themselves. Gas doesn't open itself. Matches don't strike themselves. And a smile doesn't curl at the corner when someone mentions fixing the stove knob for no reason. If you're still with me, I ask one thing. Don't click away. This story isn't here to scare you or to throw blame. It's about calling what happened by its right name and building back a porch that can block sun, rain, and unkind words. Leave a comment, just 1 line, tell me your city, and share if you've ever seen a sign that saved you from something bad. This video is part of a series about family betrayal, Sufan Boy Jia Din, but I want you to stay for the opposite, how we learn to stand up together. The wind pushed the smoke away. I looked at the small garden table where I used to drink my morning tea. The first sunlight broke free from the horizon and poured like thin honey over broken glass. I breathed in. It scratched my chest like sandpaper. "Reggie," I whispered. I made it out. No answer. Only bugs and the siren winding down. But I knew the dream wasn't a prank. It was a key that opened another door, a door to the truth. I stood as Captain Carter walked over, eyes sharp, missing nothing. "Blast likely started in the kitchen," he said. "The smell of gas has a memory, you know? It sticks to everything." I nodded. "I know. And I know a woman over 60 who has touched enough sunrises has a memory too. That memory will follow the smoke trails, sift the ashes, and show me what I need to see, no matter how it stings. If last night was a warning, then this morning is a promise. I will track this fire to the end, and when I reach the true cause, I will say its name, without shaking. Family betrayal." The fire truck rolled in. Red light swept across the drooping oak trees. The brakes squealed and stopped short. I stood at the edge of the yard with Miss Etta's quilt around my shoulders. It still smelled like old soap. Gray smoke rose in bands and curled around the half-fallen roof. It sounded almost like a person wheezing. The firefighters pulled out hoses, called quick orders, and spread a yellow tarp. Their tools shone in the lights. I watched, feeling cold and hot at the same time, like standing near a stove with the flame off but the coals still burning under it. A big man walked straight to me. His helmet said, "Carter." His voice was deep, firm, not harsh. "Ma'am, when did you leave the house?" "About 3:45, I said. "I had a feeling." He nodded, not surprised. People like him hear feelings more often than most. "Captain Leon Carter," he said fast, then waved to his team. "Shut the main gas line, kill the power, Set a 50-foot safety zone. People answered, copy, from different spots. They moved like a well-practiced band, one joining hoses, one shaking out the line, one watching the pressure gauge. Water poured out like a cold curtain over the black walls. It hissed like salt on skin. I followed the stream with my eyes and saw the fire pull back, layer by layer, until the kitchen took shape just a frame now, the metal lines flat and dark like pencil strokes. A young firefighter shouted something. Captain Carter crossed fast, knelt by the broken kitchen window, and leaned in, like a woodworker sniffing a board to guess its age. Then he stood and turned to me. "The smell is strongest at the stove line," he said. "High chance the blast started there." I gripped the edge of the quilt. "I checked the valve 3 times last night. I've done that for years." "Tell me everything you remember," he said, opening a notebook. "We'll record it all. Do you live alone?" "I do. My son, Terrence Terry, and my daughter-in-law, Keisha, stopped by this afternoon." He looked up at those 3 names. Not nosy, just sorting the facts. "Were they in the kitchen?" "Yes," Terry said. He was fixing the stove knob. His pen paused for a tiny dot on the page. The fire died down inside. Smoke rose in straight lines and then spread into the morning air. Miss Etta stayed beside me, one hand holding the quilt, the other lifting a water bottle. "Sip this, Miss Alma," she said softly. I drank. The cool water slid through my sore throat. Captain Carter looked around and spoke in a steady, practiced way. "When heat meets the right gas-air mix, you don't need a big flame. A small spark is enough. And..." He glanced at the stove frame. "Gas has a memory. It sticks to everything." The words hit my ears like a turning key. Smell has a memory. If a smell remembers, surely a person can remember even more. The tech team brought a leak detector and placed the sensor at smoky spots. The machine beeped once, twice, then went quiet. "Levels dropping," someone called. They moved like water, slow but never stopping. When they pulled back, only wet ash was left and a bent stove mouth, like someone's lips after swallowing a lie. "Do you remember where the main shutoff is?" Carter asked. "Outside, behind the rosemary. We've closed it. The gas utility will check the line tomorrow." He paused, thinking, then added, "Do you have a photo of the valve from last night?" I looked up. "Yes, sometimes. I take one to feel safe." He nodded. "Keep it. The fire investigation team will want it." He met my eyes, not dodging the truth. "I won't jump to conclusions. But some nights, accidents seem too well prepared." I squeezed the bottle, my shoulders lowered a notch, like my body understood that fear now had to turn into questions. My voice steadied. "What else do you need from me?" "A first statement, a list of everyone who went into the kitchen today. And if you remember any odd smell, sound, or tiny detail, even something that feels silly, tell us. Small things can save big cases." We stepped back to give space for scene photos. I told the details one by one. 3:47 a.m. The dream with Reggie, the gas smell like chalk dust, the shadow by the doorway, the porch wind, the moment I chose to go outside. Carter's pen moved fast, no extra comments. Sometimes he asked short questions. "Did you flip any light switches?" "No." "Any candles or lighters?" "No." "When did you close the stove valve?" "Before 11 p.m. When I said this afternoon Terry fixed the knob, he underlined 2 words, "Fix knob." An ambulance pulled up. Medics took my blood pressure and asked a few basic questions. I answered while my eyes stayed on the black stove. When they left, Carter shut his notebook. "We'll send you a short initial report. For now, rest and avoid the smoke. Do you have a place to stay tonight?" "Yes, Miss Etta's house right across." "Good." He started to walk away, then stopped and lowered his voice. "Mrs. Alma, gut feelings aren't superstition. They save lives. If your gut tells you anything else in the next few days, even hard things, call me." He put a card in my hand, Captain Leon Carter, Fire Investigation. I looked at the bold name. Calm spread through me like the water I'd just sipped. I wasn't fully alone. I had a team that works by procedure, and I had my own memory, the kind that will follow the gas smell back, notice a smile held 1 second too long, and catch a word with 1 extra syllable. As the sun rose another finger width, the smoke thinned into pale bands. Miss Etta tugged me gently. "Come wash your face at my place, then we'll plan." Her voice was quiet, but I heard something new in it. Resolve. I nodded. "Let me say goodbye to the captain." Carter shook my hand. It was rough, but warm. "You did the hardest right thing, you got out in time," he said. "The second hard thing is patience." "I'll be patient," I said, "because I want to know what this is. And if someone lit a fuse in the night, I don't want them thinking the fire burned up my voice." He nodded and headed back to the investigators, who were staking flags in the yard. I turned and walked with Miss Etta, the quilt brushing the wet grass. With each step, I repeated to myself, "Smell has a memory." Then, in a light breeze through the rosemary, I caught the faintest hint of pipe smoke. Not strong, just a tiny nod. Reggie wasn't pulling me away from the fire anymore, he was pushing me toward the answers. I walked faster. Panic was gone, clear doubt remained. I knew my next job: record, keep, and wait for the moment to set the truth on the table. Terry and Keisha's house sits on a quiet street by Forsyth Park. It's a 3-story brick townhouse, front steps clean, a fern hanging on the porch like a green curtain. I carried a small bag up the stairs. Keisha opened the door almost as soon as the bell rang. The air smelled like orange bergamot and vanilla, a practiced hello. "Mama, come in," Keisha said, taking my hand. Her hand was soft and warm, the kind of warm from someone who always knows the room's temperature and how the kitchen camera catches the light. I made coffee. Baldwin Park must have been cold last night. Terry stood behind her, hands in his pockets, eyes on the rug. "Mom, you can stay here as long as you want." Apsley. Their kitchen shone so much, the lights made twin streaks across the stone counter. Everything lined up, knives in their slot, cutting board standing, spice bottles facing forward. "Nice place," I said. Keisha smiled. "I like things tidy, Mama. If something's off by an inch, I can't breathe." "Good," I said. "It's better to feel short of breath than to be quiet and unsafe." She showed me the guest room on the second floor. White sheets, a dried lavender sprig on the nightstand. Everything was friendly, perfect. So perfect I could hear the silence. I hung my coat, set my bag on a chair, and calmly checked my things. The key ring for my properties was still inside my wallet, heavy, like a sentence I hadn't spoken. I watched Keisha roll underwear into neat little squares for the drawer I'd use. She tilted her head. "Call me if you need anything, Mama." That evening we ate a simple dinner. Terry didn't eat much. His fork made thin little rings on the plate. I asked about work. He said fine, like someone who walked through rain but kept his coat on. Keisha filled the gaps with talk about the church women's group, the new induction stove, and the smart lock with a camera. "So you'll feel safe, Mama." I nodded and sipped tea, tasting orange and the faintest metal note, the taste of too normal. When I was ready for bed, Keisha brought a small tray. Warm water, 2 white pills in a porcelain cup, and a smile the exact right size. "Did your doctor say to take something to sleep?" "I'll leave these here." "I sleep plain," I said, turning the tray back. "Warm water is fine." Night moved through this house in a different way. It didn't shout. It tested. I turned off the light, got in bed, left my wallet in the nightstand on purpose unlocked. I lay on my side and let my breathing drop, like a fishing line lowering into a pond. At 1:17 a.m., the hallway floor very softly creaked. Footsteps took a few steps and stopped right at my door. The metal knob turned one notch, just loud enough for someone who was waiting. I didn't move. My breathing stayed even, like I was sleeping. The knob stopped. After a moment, I heard breathing, not fast, but held back. The vanilla orange smell slipped under the door like a signature. Then the steps slid away, light as a cat. No words, no opening, just a test. Around 2 a.m., the steps came back, shorter this time. I heard a tiny tick like a fingernail touching the metal part of the lock. I counted in my head. 1, 2, 3. The sound stopped. Only the ceiling fan moved, slow as an old clock. I waited 10 more minutes. Then I sat up and opened the drawer. Wallet still there. I opened the wallet. Key ring still there. I closed it and set the wallet back half a fingertip off from where it had been. I wanted to see if, by morning, it would be put back to the perfect spot. In the morning, Keisha knocked and brought a tray. Oatmeal with cinnamon, strawberries cut evenly. "Sleep well, Mama?" "I slept like a watchguard," I said, smiling a little. "Keisha, did you see my key ring?" Her face went blank for 1 second, just enough for me to catch a flicker, then she laughed. "Which keys?" "The keys to the Baldwin house. I keep them in my wallet." "Maybe They got lost in the fire? With all that smoke and dust, anything could get mixed up. Could be, I said. But I remember seeing them last night. You were tired, she said, paper-thin voice, setting the bowl down and straightening the tray to the exact center. Terry came down later. He looked at me, then away, his fingers tapping an old 1-2-3 rhythm on their kid's music stand. The tapping sounded like last night's tiny metal click. Mom, you okay? I am, thanks to a gut feeling, I said. My gut told me to leave the house before sunrise. Terry swallowed. Don't think. I don't want you to worry. Worry is for the living, I said. The dead are done worrying. At noon, Keisha said she had to stop by North Star Bank for some paperwork. Just forms, Mama. She glanced at me like it was nothing. I smiled. Paper talks, Keisha. It just waits for someone to read it. Her smile paused, then restarted. She switched to talking about a new scented candle. In the afternoon, I went upstairs to get my notebook. The key ring was gone. I felt inside the bag lining smooth and empty. I opened the wallet and checked each slot, nothing. I held still for a few seconds and felt something inside my chest close. Not fear, confirmation. I sat on the bed edge and brought my breathing back to normal. Then I opened the nightstand where I'd left the wallet half a fingertip off. Now it was perfectly straight. Someone had put it back to Keisha-level tidy. I went to the kitchen. Keisha was making coffee, spoons stirring in careful, even circles. Mama, want some cake? I want to ask, did you come upstairs last night? She looked at me. Her eyelids blinked once. I only heard you walking. I didn't walk, I said. I slept. Then maybe it was the wind. Our fan sometimes makes sounds. She looked down into the cup and centered the coaster to the exact middle. Terry walked in, shoulders tight like he'd been running. I turned to him. Are you free this afternoon? I'm a little busy. Good. I want to go to your office room for a bit. I want to see that old photo of your dad. Terry stammered. Mom, my room is messy. They were friends to find without what is a find of the product of the day. Don't worry, I said evenly. I like tidy. Night 2 came like a quick blink. I turned off the light early and put my wallet in the drawer again, this time without any keys. At 1:15 a.m., the steps came back. The knob turned 2 clicks, then stopped. Breath held. The vanilla orange smell slid through like a signature. I kept my eyes closed and left everything as it was. Tomorrow morning, I'll ask Miss Etta to stop by, and I'll remind her to bring me an envelope. I'll also visit Terry's office and look for the North Star Bank logo my gut already warned me about. Too normal is a kind of noise. If you listen long enough, you can tell it from arranged silence. This time, I won't let the silence arrange me. I'll arrange the silence. Terry's office is on the 3rd floor. It's small and closed in, with a window facing Whitaker Street, where oak branches sway like an old curtain. I stood at the door long enough to hear the house breathe. The handle was cold. I knocked twice, very soft, then went in like a guest who knows the rules. No orange vanilla perfume here, just paper, printer ink, and a little old sweat. The desk sat against the wall. The computer screen slept. Next to it, a black metal mail tray, neat enough to please the pickiest eyes. I didn't touch it yet. I scanned the room. Shelf on the left, 2 low cabinets on the right, a mini safe half hidden behind business magazines. Messy, like Terry said, was only in his head. The room was lined up tight. I pulled out a chair and sat. I set my hand on the mail tray. Envelopes were stacked by size, small, medium, large, all top left corners on the same line. A North Star Bank envelope sat in the middle, the blue star logo sticking out half an inch, as if accidentally off track. I slid it out, holding the edge so I wouldn't leave prints. The envelope was thick documents inside. From Darnell Hughes, the name printed in the corner like a lazy signature senior accountant. I flipped it over. The glue had been opened and shut again with clear tape. Up close, I saw a very clean cut along the seal done with a light craft knife. I opened it and slid the papers out like pulling a thread to full length. Inside, a loan agreement, a second mortgage with the borrower listed as Terrence Robinson. I read the collateral line, my Baldwin Park house. The loan amount was exactly the county's assessed value of my home numbers, sharp as razors. Something in my chest went click. Not a break, a lock opening. The signatures were on page 3. My name, Alma Mae Robinson, printed above the line. Below it, a signature that wasn't mine. The A was shaky, the B ran too far, and the last two strokes flicked up like the writer wanted to look professional. I pictured my real signature, tidy A, a just right tall L. May joined, and Robinson drifting down soft, like a nod. This wasn't my nod. It was a sloppy imitation. I didn't rush to anger. I took out my phone and photographed every page. Title, names, amount, terms, signatures, witnesses. I zoomed in on witness, Tanya Ellis, loan officer. I underlined her in my mind. Miss Ellis. I found a disbursement sheet, dated 3 weeks before the fire. One by one, the pieces fell into place like lined-up cards. Someone had set this table long ago. I put the papers back as carefully as saving a lock of hair. Just then, footsteps came up the stairs, and a hand brushed the doorknob. I set the envelope back in the tray, half a fingertip off from perfect. The door opened. Keisha peeked in, eyes bright. Just enough. "Mama, I was looking for you. I made herbal tea." "Thanks," I said, voice flat as a still lake. "Your room is neat." "It's Terry's office, Mama." She smiled and stepped in one pace, eyes flicking over the tray. Her smile stilled for 1 second when she saw the envelope edge off the line. Her left hand, without thinking, straightened it light as a butterfly, pulling the star logo back into perfect row. To most people, that's a tidy habit. To me, it was a small confession. "Did you sleep okay last night?" "I did. Don't worry about the house noises," I said. "Every house has its own breath." She tilted her head. "I know this house well, Mama." The word fell into the room like a drop of oil on water. When she went downstairs, I opened the right cabinet. Inside was a clipboard with loose papers. I flipped through small bills, flyers, a hand-filled application. The co-borrower box was empty. Contact attorney had a expected funding was marked as soon as possible. In pencil on the side was D. Hughes. I took more photos. The mini safe stuck out behind the magazines. I tried the handle locked. I had no plan to break it. Truth likes doors open the right way. I went to the kitchen. Terry leaned on the counter with a coffee, staring into space like a silent movie was playing. "Heading to work early?" I asked. "Yeah, I have an appointment." "At North Star Bank?" His cup stopped midair. He looked up, eyes slipping for a beat, then back down like he'd just remembered to breathe. "Why do you think that?" "Because I dreamed of a star logo," I said, smiling. Old folks' dreams often hit close. Keisha set a mug of herbal tea in front of me. "Drink, Mama." She turned the cup to the exact center of the coaster. She didn't look at me. Like all the answers lived under the cup. "Terry," I said, still steady. "The second mortgage on the Baldwin house has a signature that isn't mine. The amount matches the appraisal. The date is 3 weeks before the fire. Do you want to say anything?" The air in the kitchen stretched, like chewing gum with no flavor. Terry set down the cup. His jaw tightened, then let go. I just wanted things stable. Fast." "What kind of stable?" "I planned to pay it back and then you wouldn't have to." Keisha cut in, thin voice with a steel core. "Mama, you misunderstand. Papers always need signatures. Maybe the bank printed it wrong." "The bank printed my signature wrong?" I said, gentle. "If it's a mistake, let's both go to North Star Bank this afternoon and ask Miss Ellis, okay?" A hard silence dropped on the table. Keisha smiled again, like a guitar string just tightened. "Let me check my schedule." "Good," I said, standing. "And this," I added, sending an email to myself and attorney Langston Price. Photos of the agreement, the payout sheet, the application draft, and a note. Possible forged signature. Second mortgage. 3 weeks pre-incident. I went back to the tray, took a new white envelope, and slipped inside printed copies from their own machine. The printer sat in the lower cubby. The cable was still warm. I sealed it with clear tape holding fresh fingerprints of mine. I left them on purpose. I wrote on the front, "For Miss Etta, keep sealed." In my head, I said 2 names out loud, Darnell Hughes and Tanya Ellis. Before I left, I looked Terry in the eye. "Son, I don't need an apology. I need accuracy. At 3 p.m., I'll be in the lobby of North Star Bank, Savannah branch. If you come, we'll speak to the staff with the papers right there. If you don't, I'll still go, and then the story will be told by my lawyer." Terry gave one very small nod, like someone learning to tell the truth to his own knees. Keisha pressed her lips tight and adjusted the coaster again, though it was already perfect. I stepped onto the porch. The Savannah sun leaned like a golden page. I breathed in. I caught fern and the faint metal scent of screws in this story. In my pocket, Captain Carter's card tapped my phone, whispering, "Patience." I smiled. Patience without delay. Ahead of me, the papers will talk. And this afternoon, I'll let them speak on a shiny counter, under the neutral lights of a bank. That night, I set up the room like a trap made of silence. No wires, no hooks, just order. I left the curtain slightly open so the streetlight made a soft ribbon on the floor, bright enough to catch shadows but not faces. On the nightstand, I placed the warm water tray the way Keisha always does. Next to it were 2 white pills she had set out. Under the thin doily, I taped a small voice recorder about the size of a finger. I covered its tiny light with black tape. One last check. Full battery. Voice-activated mode. It only records when there's sound. I put my wallet in the drawer like before, set half a fingertip crooked a habit to tempt tidy people to fix it. Then I sat on the bed's edge and took a deep breath, like a girl about to jump rope. Keisha tapped lightly and came in with the nightly ritual. A steaming cup of warm water, 2 pills in a porcelain cup. The familiar orange vanilla smell reached the room a step before she did. "Mama, the second night is always hard to sleep," she said, voice smooth as silk. "My doctor says older folks should have a little help." I lifted my eyes so they met the rim of the cup. "What's the name of the pill?" "It's just a support, Mama." She dodged. The smile didn't slip, but her eyelids fell a beat slower. "I sleep plain," I said. "Warm water is enough." "And every one?" She set the tray down and centered the doily, perfect to the dot. Her hand didn't shake. It was the hand of someone very good at moving through other people's homes without leaving footprints. "Sleep well, Mama," she said, and left. Her heels softened down the stairs like dust settling. I picked up a pill. Small, round, white, but on my tongue, the taste was bitter, not vitamin. I tucked the first under my tongue, counted to 30, then lifted the cup like I had swallowed it. I went to the bathroom. I ran the water just enough to cover sound. I spit the pill into my palm, wrapped it in tissue, dropped it in the toilet, and flushed. The second pill, too. I washed my hands longer than usual, so the soap smell covered all others. I looked in the mirror. A 1-year-old woman. More awake, more clear, less afraid. "Tonight is for ears," I whispered, "not eyes." I went back to bed and turned off the light. The phone showed 19. I lay on my side and let my breath flow slow, like the late boats on the Savannah River. The house began to talk. The ceiling fan, the pipes, the wood. Then 117 footsteps. Light, slow, controlled. They stopped right at my door. The knob turned 1 click. No opening. I heard breathing, not scared panting, but held back breath from someone measuring their own heartbeat. The orange vanilla smell slid under the door like a signature. "Is she asleep?" A whisper, breath brushing the wood. Another voice answered, very low, cut short. "Dry. Terry. Probably. Don't be sure. Last night she didn't take it." Keisha's words moved like a needle through cloth. "Give it 1 more night, a slightly higher dose." I heard the recorder click faintly under the doily, its light hidden, but its circuit knew a sentence worth keeping. Terry took a breath, voice thin and cracked. "Keisha, don't say dose here. Then say support." She fixed it fast. "If gas doesn't work, then the stairs. A slip of 3 steps is enough." The word gas touched the door like a dead match still warm. I closed my eyes deeper, counting breaths so I didn't jump up. Terry murmured, "Don't stay near her door." I only listen. And last night the wallet was crooked. This morning it was straight again. "Don't touch the wallet anymore." "I didn't," Keisha said, voice thin as a blade. "This house straightens itself." They left. 2 sets of steps, one heavy, one light, one with guilt, one with a plan. I opened my eyes in the dark and let gas or stairs ring in my ears like a bell that stopped but still echoes. I didn't shake. I knew what to do. In the morning, send the audio to Attorney Langston Price with a time log. At noon, slip by the storage under the stairs to buy bread. In the afternoon, go to North Star Bank with or without them. 141. Footsteps again, 1 person. The knob turned 2 clicks. then released. A metal thing like a small key ticked against the lock. Short breath, Keisha. The orange vanilla smell was stronger now, like she had just sprayed it. She stood a long time, as if measuring whether the silence inside was real sleep. The recorder clicked softly when her hand touched the knob again, but she didn't open it. She left. The stairs counted 1, 2, 3, then faded. I sat up and turned on a very dim light, just enough to see inside the drawer. The wallet was where I left it, but its corner had been smoothed flat. I smiled a silent smile, like I had finally tied a thread through the right buttonhole. I took my phone. The flashlight glowed low. I lifted the doily half an inch and checked the recorder light. Still alive. I wrote in my notebook, 1:17 hallway talk. Keywords: gas, stairs, 141, lock test, no entry. Morning. The kitchen was very normal. Keisha poured coffee, her spoon made even circles so steady it felt like a voltage regulator. Mama, did you sleep better? Better. Warm water works. The pills? It is 1. The pills are for tonight, I said, setting my spoon off-center on the coaster. She looked and centered it with one small move. The orange vanilla smell signed the air again. Terry came down later, jaw darker, eyes missing sleep. I handed him a piece of toast. Eat something, then go where you need to go. He nodded and took the bread, like someone learning to trust basic motions again. I picked up last night's tray, carried it upstairs, and shut the door. I tipped 2 fresh pills into my hand, took photos, and checked my little drug guide I've kept for years. Zolpidem? Diazepam? No label, but the taste says plenty. I put both pills into an envelope and hid it in the bottom of my suitcase. Then I lifted the doily and pulled the memory card from the recorder, slid in a new one. I plugged the used card into my phone. The device is old enough to transfer files by cable. I hit play with earbuds in. The sound poured in like a living case file. Footsteps, breath, the whisper, gas, no, stairs. I listened to the end. My hands didn't shake. I named the file Hallway, Whisper, 1H17, 2M4A. The wood floor was quiet, but I knew the house had just helped me catch a piece of the dark. I emailed Addie, Price and Captain Leon Carter, the audio file, pill photos, time notes. In the subject line I wrote, Supplemental evidence, family betrayal, gas, stairs plan. I CC'd Miss Etta with one line, please hold this, do not share. Back in the kitchen, Keisha was pulling a cleaning cloth from the cabinet. She looked up with a smile the exact right size. Mama, do you want me to drive you to the store? No, I said, voice flat as a countertop. I have a 3 p.m. appointment at North Star Bank. If you're free, stop by. She paused. The edge of her mouth went a little stiff. I'll check my schedule. Good. I grabbed my bag. And tonight, please leave only warm water. The pills, later. She was quiet for a second. Yes, ma'am. And it will stand. Terry looked up at me like someone stepping onto a plank bridge that won't break if he walks in rhythm. I gave a small nod. Patience, I said. Patience without delay. When I opened the door, a breeze from Forsyth Park drifted in with the smell of oak leaves and a thin ring of orange vanilla. That smell was no longer a question mark. It was a comma, letting the next part of the story speak through papers, through audio, and by arranging the silence on my terms. Attorney Langston Price's office sits in an old brick building on River Street, with tall windows looking over the Savannah River, sliding by like a slow tape in a time reader. I arrived 10 minutes early. Outside, a low train horn sounded like a reminder that every trip has a schedule. Inside, the air smelled like paper, ink, and the leather of fresh case files. The assistant poured me tea and asked if I wanted sugar. I said no. Let the tea speak in its own flavor. Langston came out from the back room in a white shirt and gray tie, eyes clear, like someone used to reading the truth on paper before hearing it with his ears. Miss Alma, please. He shook my hand in a steady way that felt like guarantee. We sat at a long wooden table. I set down the evidence packet I had already emailed, photos of the loan agreement, the payout sheet, photos of the pills, and the audio file I renamed Hallway, Whisper 1H17, 2M4A. Langston opened his iPad, put on earbuds, and listened to the whisper. Gas. No, the stairs. When Keisha said, 3 steps is enough, He paused. His eyebrows pinched, like placing a staple. "We have 3 tracks," he said, slow and clear. 1. Criminal, a plan that could harm a life. 2. Civil, a forged signature on the second mortgage. 3. Asset protection, we need to freeze any move they might try next. I'll need you to confirm details so our chain of custody, the record of who handled the evidence, stays tight. I nodded. "Ask me anything." He took a black binder from a cabinet labeled Alma M. Robinson Master File. First, Reggie's original will. I've kept it in my safe for years. Every time it comes out, we log it. I want you to see it and compare handwriting now. He put on white gloves, opened a wall safe, and took out a sealed brown envelope with wax. He warmed the seal, opened it, and slid out the original will like a silk worker unrolling fine cloth. Reggie's hand was clear, a tall, balanced R, and Robinson's sinking at the end like a boat anchor. He handed me a signature comparison sheet with my real signatures from past contracts. "Look at your name, Alma May Robinson, on page 3 of this loan agreement." He pulled up the copy on the screen and set it beside the real one. "Here's the shaky start on the A, here's the overthrow on the B. Forgers often focus on shape and forget the rhythm." He tapped his pen. "I'll hire an independent handwriting examiner now. That report is the spine of the forgery case." I said, "What about North Star Bank?" "For the bank, we have 2 leads, Darnell Hughes, accountant, and Miss Tanya Ellis, loan officer. I'll send a letter of preservation to make the bank save all transaction video, system logs, appointments, and internal notes. We cannot let them claim lost data. I'll also file a signature dispute to freeze the loan." I slid over Captain Leon Carter's card. "Fire crew shut off the main gas line and are checking the pipes." He said gas has a memory. Langston nodded. "I'll coordinate with the fire investigators. If they find a gas leak and tampering, the criminal track moves fast." He took off the earbuds, played the recording again on low speaker, held breath, a hand on a doorknob, the stitch-like words, support, gas, stairs, 3 steps. He stopped. "You were right not to confront them yet. Now we need to keep you safe for a few more nights." He wrote safety plan on the folder. 1. You do not take anything Keisha gives you. Seal all pills and note the time. 2. Lock in at night. Use a door wedge or chair. 3. Share live location with me and Miss Etta. I'll set it up. 4. Any talk with Terry, Keisha, happens with a third person or in public. 5. 3 p.m. Today I will be at North Star Bank. You won't face them alone. I nodded. His words felt like road lines painted into bone. "What about the paper evidence?" "I'll make 3 sets. 1. Originals in the safe. 2. Stamped true copy for you. 3. A set to the police with a receipt. Every digital file gets a checksum to prove no edits." He gave a thin smile, the kind from someone who turns loose parts into a working machine. "And I want Miss Etta to keep 1 sealed envelope as a spare key. A neighbor like her is a strong community anchor." The assistant knocked and brought in 2 sealed envelopes marked LP, A.E. Langston Price, Alma Evidence. Langston signed. I signed. The assistant signed as witness. Then he drew a timeline. 3:47 a.m. Smell of gas plus you exit noted. Around 5:30, explosion, SFD report. Night 117. Whisper gas stairs audio. Night 141, lock test audio. Notes. Morning, key ring missing plus mail tray adjusted. Noon, prep for North Star Bank meeting. He drew a line to tonight. Do not go back to Baldwin, of course. At Terry's place, I suggest a quiet dinner you invite, no talk about papers. We'll place pieces in order after I have the bank's preservation letter confirmed. Stay calm, your voice is your tool. I looked out the window. A tug pulled a barge and left a long wake. I thought of a table with candles, Reggie's photo in the middle, and how truth can sit still but weigh your pocket like a stone. I can do it, I said. Langston handed me a small door wedge palm-sized. Use this for now. And, here. He gave me an emergency card with a QR code. If anything feels wrong, scan it. I'll get an alert and call the police. I stood. He walked me into the brick hall. River light hit the wall, and the attorney at law plate shone like a marker. Miss Alma, he said, lower voice, the word family can make people hesitate, but family is a noun, justice is a verb. We'll do the verb. Outside, the river breeze was salty with ship and old iron smells. I called Miss Etta and asked her to pick up the sealed envelope. she said. Don't worry, I'll hold it like a Bible. I texted Captain Carter. Sent audio plus timeline to council. 3 p.m. North Star. Read receipt popped up. I checked my watch. I still had time to go home, change clothes, braid my hair neat, and leave space in my head for an afternoon under bank lights where papers will talk. And tonight, at another table, I'll let those papers speak for me with a steady voice, no shaking like the river moving through town, slow, sure, and never backward. That evening, I asked for a dinner that was quiet but heavy. No candles, no flowers, just a long wooden table under a soft yellow light. In the middle, I set Reggie's photo, his faded blue shirt, and a smile tilted toward my forehead, like when we used to stand on the porch. Keisha laid out the plates perfectly straight. Terry put down 3 sets of forks, his hands shaking like someone trying to pour water into a glass that's already full. Thank you for being here tonight, I said, calm. After a long day at North Star Bank, I want to eat with family. Keisha served soup and gave a small, fixed smile. Yes, Mama, family comes first. In the clearing the word, Terry coughed softly and looked away from Reggie's picture, like he was afraid it might look back. We ate a few bites, acting like everything was normal. When I heard the third soft clink of dishes, I set down my spoon. The sound was thin but firm, like tapping a table to start a song. I pulled a thin file folder from my bag clear cover, little tabs with numbers on top. Keisha watched my hands the way a cat watches a flashlight. I want to tell a story, I said. A story where paper speaks. Keisha tried to cut in. Mama, let's rest our minds tonight. Keisha, I smiled, still gentle. You'll have your turn, but first, let the papers talk. Tab 1. I took out a true copy of Reggie's will, stamped True Copy by Attorney Langston Price. I put it by the photo. Reggie's handwriting lay there, steady, not needing a spotlight. This is the original will Reggie trusted Langston to keep in the safe. Anything else someone made to tidy things up is just dust on glass. Terry swallowed. Keisha rotated her spoon so it lined up with the coaster. Tab 2. A copy of the second mortgage from North Star Bank. I turned to page 3 and spun it around so Terry and Keisha could see Alma Mae Robinson, a fake signature. This loan was made 3 weeks before the blast. The amount matches my Baldwin Park house value exactly. This signature is not mine. This afternoon, Miss Tanya Ellis got a preservation letter. The cameras, system logs, and appointments are now locked for review. Terry's jaw tightened. Keisha tilted her head, smile stiffening. Banks sometimes print the wrong. Great, I nodded. Then tomorrow we'll all rewatch the footage, for what's true. Tab 3. Photos of the pills in the porcelain cup and a sealed envelope holding the 2 white tablets. I didn't need to explain the bitter taste. I set the photos down like 2 small stones with weight. Keisha glanced and turned back to the pot, but her hand stalled on the handle, a tiny click of nail on metal. Tab 4. A black USB labeled hallway. Whisper. 1H. 17. 2. M4. A. I didn't press play. I laid it between their silverware. Inside, I said, is the breathing outside my door at 117, and the words, gas, no, the stairs, 3 steps. This file is already with our lawyer and Captain Leon Carter. I brought a copy so tonight's table has evidence like a hearing. In the quiet after that, I could hear the kitchen clock thin, even, neutral like a blade that hasn't chosen where to cut. Keisha spoke first, voice like a memorized prayer. Mama, I get it after a shock. People get careful. But words like gases and stairs are context, not a plan. The context of spices is not the context of a scheme, I said. Eyes kind. Someone who likes things tidy knows the difference between putting things straight and setting a trap. Terry stood so fast the chair squeaked. Mom, he said, hands opening and closing. I messed up. I thought I could fix it fast. I would pay it back. I didn't mean. Keisha cut in. Steel under silk. Sit down. Then to me. Mama, I love Terry. I protect our family. Everyone protects in their own way. Family is a noun, I said slowly. Protect is a verb. And your verb just woke up the law's verb. Terry sat, eyes wide a second, like he'd just seen his shadow in the soup bowl. Mom, I lifted Reggie's frame and set it by the will. Do you remember this man? He taught you to tie your shoes. He taught you to sign your name in the right place for the right thing. Terry stared and tripped on his breath. I remember. Then sign in the right place again, I said, not sharp, not soft. Sign a statement about what you did, so the truth can rest. Not for forgiveness. Forgiveness is later. Tonight I need accuracy. Keisha gave a tiny laugh like flicking water. Accuracy is easy. What about feelings, Mama? You want to judge this family in front of a photo? No one gets judged by a photo, I said. People are judged by papers and sound. I brought the truth to dinner because the bank at noon was too bright for lies. Terry touched the USB. His finger didn't shake as much. Where else is this file? At Langston Price's office, I said, and with the fire department. Miss Etta holds a sealed envelope too. You know her, she holds it like a Bible. A thin breeze slid in through the cracked window. The curtain moved. The table shivered like a boat pushing off. Keisha set down her spoon and folded her hands. First time tonight they were not perfect. What do you want, Mama? I want what's right, I said. Tomorrow, 9 a.m., Langston's office. Terry, you'll sign a statement and a responsibility pledge. Keisha, bring everything you're keeping safe. Keys, papers, and your contacts for Darnell Hughes and Miss Ellis. We'll speak face to face. Not through a kitchen or a hallway at night. Terry sniffed, almost crying, but the tears stopped at the edge. Tears can wait until the verbs are done. Mom, I'll go. Keisha looked at him, then me. Her smile was gone. What remained was a clear mask. And if I don't go? She asked, light as a thread on a nail. Then Justice will go, I said, without you. I put the papers back in my bag, leaving one page on the table, the blown-up signature page with a red, disputed stamp across it. I stood and rested my hand on the chair back like a parent's hand on a fevered child. I'll make tea, I said softly. Tea helps people swallow truth. No apologies tonight. I want one thing, sleep without lying in your dreams. Keisha stood. I'll make it. Let me, I said. You set the hot water. In the kitchen, I turned on the tap. The sound was calm. In the glass door I could see the table behind me. Terry bowed, forehead on two knuckles, Keisha upright, shoulders square, eyes without a safe place to land. I set the kettle on the electric stove, not gas. When the light clicked from red to green, I brought the tea and poured 3 cups. It's time, I said, lifting mine. Family sits at the table. Truth sits in the middle. Justice waits at the door. If you want to step through, step. I sipped. It was hot enough to tell my throat there's nothing to argue. Terry touched the red disputed page. His hand was steady now. Tomorrow, 9 a.m., he said. Keisha looked at me, then at Reggie's photo. I'll check my schedule, she said her usual line but softer. Under those words I heard a tiny sound, a support shifting 1 inch toward truth. I nodded. Good. Dinner is over. I turned off the table lamp and left the kitchen light on. The glow ran along the wood like a thin river. In that light, I remembered my line from the start. I don't need an apology, I need accuracy. Tonight, accuracy lay on the table, straight as a ruler. Tomorrow, the verbs begin. Morning on River Street was cold like a knife rinsed under water. I arrived 10 minutes early. The glass door of Attorney Langston Price's office showed my reflection, and Miss Etta's beside me, her hand squeezed mine, firm enough to say, "We'll do our part." Inside, it smelled like paper and leather folders. Langston nodded, pulled out chairs, and set down a black folder labeled Acknowledgement and Statement of Responsibility. I wrote exactly what we discussed last night, he said. 1. Terry's truth statement. 2. A civil responsibility pledge about the illegal loan promise to cancel and repay. 3. A cooperation letter for the criminal side if investigators ask. The door opened. Terry walked in. His shirt wasn't ironed, his eyes tired, but he didn't hide. A few steps later, Keisha appeared, lips tight, holding a big envelope. No orange vanilla scent today. She wore almost no smell, like a quiet strategy. Langston didn't stall. He slid the folder to Terry, voice firm but kind. Read every line. I marked the places, but the pen is yours. He turned to me and Miss Etta. You two are independent witnesses. Sign the witness line and write the time. Terry sat, took a deep breath, and turned the first page. The paper made a thin sound in the brick room. I watched his hand, the same hand that was once small dough when I taught him to roll cinnamon rolls. Now those fingers held the pen without shaking. He read just loud enough. I, Terrence Robinson, admit I filed a second mortgage loan without the consent of Alma Mae Robinson. The signature in the file is not hers. I agree to cancel the loan, pay the costs, and cooperate with the investigation. A bead of sweat slid from his temple down his cheek like a comma ending a sentence. He signed, Terry Robinson, a clean stroke, falling steady, like he had relearned how to stand up straight. Langston turned to Keisha. And for you, this is the handover of evidence and property you've been keeping. Keisha passed the envelope and said quietly, keys, contact notes for Darnell Hughes, and messages with Miss Ellis. I put them back where they belong. It wasn't an apology, but it wasn't denial either. She signed the handover page, pretty writing, but less steel today. Langston rang a bell. The assistant rolled in a scanner. The digital copies will get a timestamp and checksum, he said, like a train running on time. Paper copies go into evidence bags. One set to the safe, one set to the fire department and North Star Bank with the loan cancellation letter. I looked at Terry. He raised his eyes, red but clear. Mom, I did the one right thing I can do today. I nodded. Right and enough for this morning. The rest is building right habits every day. Keisha turned her ring, stared at the tile, then at me. Mama, last night I was foolish. I thought control was love. Love is setting boundaries, I said. Not setting traps. I didn't push more. The truth was already doing its work. Miss Etta coughed softly, put on reading glasses, and signed the witness line like a church ritual. I, Etta Mae Harrison, attest. She set down the pen and touched Terry's shoulder. This signature loosens a knot in my chest. Terry bowed his head. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for watching, but it's stand one. Langston attached a ready cancellation letter to North Star. Under the UCC and state rules, a signature dispute triggers a freeze and void right. We request preservation of cameras on date, time, and user logs for Ellis, Teller. He looked up. When the bank replies, we go to the DA on the forgery. For the fire, the investigators already have your audio in the system. I exhaled. Inside my chest, a lock slid into place. Terry turned to Keisha. This afternoon I'll fix the loose stair and swap the kitchen light for a type that won't spark. No more experiments in our house. Keisha nodded, short, but true. Langston closed the folder and gave each of us a stamped copy. Now, legal advice and human advice. Go home and be silent for 24 hours. No arguing, no explanations. Let the papers run ahead of the words. He set another card in front of Terry. Contact, victim assistance, and restitution plan. If you want to repair, start with specific actions, pay fees, get debt counseling, and write a statement of facts to your mother. No begging for forgiveness, just the truth. Terry whispered, yes. He stood, walked around the table, and didn't hug me. He only touched the back of my hand with 2 fingers. A new kind of humility. Thank you, Mom, for not letting the fire speak for you. I smiled. Fire warms if we place it right. This way. In the brick hallway, the river wind tasted like salt and old iron. Miss Etta tugged my arm and murmured, come eat chicken soup at my place tonight. Your house needs quiet. Keisha paused at the threshold, wanting to say something, then stopped. At last she said, I'll check my schedule to give the lawyer more data. The old line, but now it had direction. I looked toward the water. Small waves chased each other in the sun. Behind us, papers were signed, audio stored, keys returned. Ahead, there are ruts to fill, but this morning, the first stretch of road was packed firm by one word, accountability. And in my heart, Reggie's voice brushed the door like wind. Keep going, Alma. The verbs are moving. In the afternoon, I borrowed Miss Etta's heavy coat and went back alone to Baldwin Park. The burned lot looked like a sentence cut in half. What was left was ash, broken bricks, and a few black beams like ribs. The wind carried the smell of old smoke mixed with wet earth after last night's rain, both wild and gentle. Smell has a memory. Captain Carter was right. Today, that memory led me. The rusty gate gave a thin cry. I walked slowly. My shoes sank into soft ash like chalk dust. The kitchen was now a sunken rectangle, brick edges like saw teeth. I stopped and closed my eyes for a few seconds. I could still hear Reggie's kettle, and his little cough before he'd laugh and say, "Don't add too much sugar." I opened my eyes and picked up a tile chip with a smooth, rounded corner so oddly smooth in all this rough. My hands shook less. I didn't come to grieve. I came to listen. A slant of sun slid across the fallen porch and lit a tiny spark in the debris. I knelt and brushed away ash. My fingers touched cold metal. I lifted it a ring. The engraving, R, R, A, M. It was smoky but still clear. Reggie's wedding ring. I sat down hard, like someone pressed pause on my heart. For years we held each other with small acts. It turns out some things can survive fire and stay to say, "I'm still here." I slipped the ring onto my necklace and put it around my neck. My body warmed it. The wind shifted and brought a faint pipe smoke smell. "I hear you," I whispered. At the edge of the old hallway, a wood beam lay across like a little bridge. Under it sat something square and black, covered in soot. I bent down, slid out a small metal box. One corner was dented, but the lid still fit. The lock was gone. The fire must have melted the latch. I eased it open. Inside was scorched cotton lining and a bundle of envelopes tied with a string burned brown. The first envelope had one word: Alma. It's not no past. I knew Reggie's writing at once, the A not tall, the first L leaning a bit, like a tired worker after a long shift. I sat on a broken step and opened it. The paper was yellowed, but the ink was strong. "My Alma, if you're reading this, some fire must have crossed our life. Don't be afraid. You don't belong to fear. You belong to the morning. Sometimes I won't be there to shut the gas or pull you to the porch, but I left a few things right place, right time. In the box there is a key. When your heart feels 1 ounce lighter, take it to Langston Price. He and I agreed on one line. Fire is not the end, it is a start. You'll understand. I'm beside you in the silence that smells like pipe smoke." I bit my lip so the tears didn't fall. They just warmed my eyes. Under the letter was a small key wrapped in waxed paper and a thinner envelope marked, "When the work is done." I didn't open it. Some words should be read in the right season. My phone buzzed a text from Langston. "The bank has frozen the loan. They confirmed the preservation letter. At noon, I received a safe deposit delivery in your name. Come by when you can." I looked at the key in my hand and gave a small laugh. Life can click into place like a latch finding the right groove. I slid the letter back into its envelope, tucked it into my inside pocket, and stood with the metal box. The sun moved through the trees and lit the row of rosemary, burned down but still stubbornly fragrant. I rubbed a black twig. The oil still clung to my fingers. Fire takes shape away. Smell can stay. Maybe memories do too. On my way to the gate, I paused at the doorway. Now just a strip of floor, a different color. "Thank you," I told the house that had covered us from rain and sun for a lifetime. "Thank you for telling the truth at the end by the blast, by the smoke, by a ring that outran fire, and by a box that could wait for the right moment." Outside, Miss Etta leaned on the fence, eyes squinting in the light. "Find anything, dear?" "Enough to keep going," I said, showing her the ring. She touched it with a fingertip and smiled through tears. "Then let's go have tea, then head to River Street. The man named Price is holding a sunrise for you." I closed my hand around the key. Inside my chest, I felt a door open softly. And I knew, tonight, I would sleep deep. Not because of pills, but because my anchor had slid 1 more inch toward the light. Late afternoon, Langston Price set the safe deposit box on the wooden table in his glass office facing River Street. Sunlight slid across the metal lid like a clear yes. He broke the seal and pushed it to me. Inside were the property deed for an oceanfront lot in the name of Alma Mae Robinson, a faded photo of a white cottage facing the sea, and a handwritten note. "When your heart is steady for 1 beat, I walk toward the sunrise." The writing was Reggie's tight, sure, and firm, like a task passed on. That night I asked Miss Etta to come with me. The road along Tybee was salty with wind. The lighthouses sat small in the gray-blue dusk. We turned down a narrow dirt lane. The cottage appeared small. White wood walls, tin roof, windows cracked open like someone had just stepped out. I stood on the steps and felt like my hand had found the right lock for my life. The key Reggie left turned once. The door opened with a soft breath. Inside, everything waited for the right person. A long table, empty bookshelves, an amber glass vase, and a tilted photo of the sea like an invitation. I set my wedding ring on the table beside Reggie's photo from the file box. "You really brought me here," I whispered. Sea air moved the curtains, salt, seaweed, and the faintest pipe smoke, like a kind memory. My phone buzzed. Terry called. His voice broke, then steadied. "Mom, the bank confirmed the loan is canceled. I filed the statement and signed up for restitution. I'll meet the case coordinator on the lawyer's schedule, and I'll fix our stairs tonight." I leaned in the doorway and watched the waves beat steady like a healed heartbeat. "Do your part. The rest we let papers and good habits go first." He was quiet a few seconds. Then, "Thank you for not letting family betrayal be the final line." I hung up. Keisha texted one line. "Tomorrow I'll give Langston more data texts, appointments. I removed the hallway camera. I will relearn tidy without control." I looked at the rising moon and thought about new borders clear, but not cold. On my first night in the white cottage, I slid the table beside the window and set Reggie's photo in the center. On the first page of a blue notebook, I wrote, "No fire defines me, it only lights up what must change." I made tea and poured 2 cups, like the old habit, one for me, one for the one who set the marker. Miss Etta leaned back and smiled. "This house breathes in your rhythm." I nodded. "And in our community's rhythm, too. One day, women like me will sit at this table bringing ash and leaving with light." At dawn, I opened every window. Waves hit the rocks. Sun brushed the water like a gold brush. I hung a small sign on the porch, handwritten, ink still sweet. "We open at sunrise." Not a bakery, but a house that breathes where truth is named, and boundaries are set with love that doesn't give in. I texted Captain Leon Carter. "New house electric stove." He replied, "Good. And remember, gas smells have memory. We have the record." I laughed out loud. When the sun cleared the horizon, I stood at the steps and touched the chain with Reggie's ring. I spoke like a promise. For the rest of my life, I'll use a calm voice to say what is accurate. In the wind, I almost heard, "You made it to sunrise, Alma." I closed my eyes for a beat. Family betrayal stayed behind me. Ahead was a new day with the law, the community, and a kitchen with no pilot flame. In a week, this porch door will open for the first guest at sunrise with an envelope stamped with a strange seal. Are they here to ask for shelter or to bring a new secret grown in the dark? If this story moved you, please subscribe so we can meet at the next sunrise. Not quite your style? Leave a comment. I read every word to tune the rhythm. And if it's still not your cup of tea, tap like as a signal. Push it higher. Thank you for staying to the end. 2 more life stories are on the screen. Tap 1 to keep traveling.